Dinarland May 17, 2017. First up from T-Man 23. Everyone is hopeful. We can only wait and see what announcement comes out on Friday the 26th and what shows on the 29th. Next on KTFA. From JDuffel1, Frank, the other day an article came out about selling the rest of the bonds. In your opinion, do you think they'll want to sell all of these prior to rate change? If they do, in my opinion, we have to wait further. From Samson, Abadi's information, we will establish an official and popular celebrations after the announcement of a major release of Mosul. The Prime Minister promised Haider al-Abadi the establishment of a major official and popular celebrations if the final declaration of victory over the organization of Daesh criminal and the liberation of the entire city of Mosul and the expected announcement before the holy month of Ramadan. Abadi said in a statement to the reporter, Information, on the sidelines of the weekly conference yesterday evening. He said that, victory the expeditious entire city of Mosul and liberation represents the final stage of salvation from the remnants of Daesh criminal and what remains, it will need very little time and effort less. Abadi said, the government will prepare a special program to mark the occasion and will be an official and popular, where all official and popular institutions in all Iraqi provinces contribute to the celebration and thus these celebrations will accelerate to speed up the rest of the organization less time. From Nasi 66, Iraqi private banks are calling for Central to activate the monetary policy. Called on the Chancellor in the Iraqi Private Banks Association Samir Naziri, the Central Bank of Iraq, to activate its monetary policy to support the private banking system, and re-examine the policies and lending departments of credit risk, with an emphasis on the lesson some observations in the strategic framework adopted in the coming years. He said in an interview to Life, that the implementation of the Iraqi Central Bank's strategy for the coming years, requires a lesson set of observations, including monitoring the implementation of future policies of cash until the year 2020 with the contribution of the banking sector in gross domestic product, GDP, as well as the search for new policies to achieve this goal and allow banks, government and private participation in the growth and investment in accordance with the mechanisms and policies that are applicable, and without imposing strict policies and to give adequate elasticities. He added that it is necessary to seek to address the apparent gap between the fiscal policies of the state and monetary policies adopted by the central bank and the requirements of the anti-inflationary pressures, in addition to reducing current spending and coordination in the plans and programs that save the Iraqi economy from financial collapses. He also pointed al-Nasiri to the importance of activating the monetary policy to support the private banking system, and the revision of policies and lending mechanisms of credit risk management in the granting of credit to small and medium loans, in addition to investment in production and investment sectors that achieve cash flow, and revive the economic cycle, which contributes to economic development and diversify the financial resources of the general budget. In the context of the sale of the dollar process for which the Central organized, al-Nasiri called for accurate follow-up instructions for a window of foreign currency issued this year, and the need to define the role of banks in the mediation between the customer and the Central, in addition to determining the responsibility of the Ministries of Trade, Finance, and Planning irregularities committed by some customers, and not only load responsibility for banks. He stressed the importance of the adoption of boards of directors in the strategy of banks' operational risks and implementation, and review debt doubtful according to the list of guidelines, re-elasticities, and periods of time for additional banks to liquidate these debts accruing mostly to civilian migration from their provinces for security reasons beyond their control. And called for the restructuring of the particular government banking sector, with an emphasis on the need to study the allocation of some of its departments, and to activate the operating banks to expand their banking services and diversify, particularly to increase credit and investment share in a balanced manner with total revenues into these banks, an effective pillar of economic growth, provided that the move away from monopoly some banking operations and the withholding of government activities and public institutions for private banks. He added that there is also the need to develop the Iraqi market for securities money and support, and to find the means and tools that drive towards the lifting of the market and companies' index prices, in line with its assets and standards of production and profits, and to prevent speculation that harm the Iraqi assets' disproportionate real value, calling for the establishment of a fund or a private portfolio certificates of deposit issued by banks wishing to address the deterioration of stock prices. The request to add a new bank management current investment climate in the market to promote and increase the size of the deposits of banks leads to increased investment activities in all economic sectors and thus achieve a positive return for investors. He said al-Nasiri the monetary policy of leading efforts to achieve economic stability and stabilizing the exchange rates that the national economy will also increase the strength and effectiveness to meet the economic challenges of economic policy, and believes that the achievement of reserves of foreign exchange, which currently stands at about $49 billion, stabilize the Iraqi dinar exchange rate against the dollar is one of the things necessary, pointing out that the foreign currency held by the central window had a positive role in maintaining an appropriate level of the exchange rate and install it. He pointed out that Central Iraq has taken many steps to expand the list of available instruments of monetary policy and to cover the reserve required to include government deposits, and the granting of facilities on deposits maturing in a short period in order to allow banks to manage their liquidity more effectively. He added that the relative stability of the rates of the exchange rate of tight monetary policy and the stability of the financial system, as well as reducing inflationary phenomenon and to control the levels of liquidity and management, and to encourage banks to move towards the market, of the most important tools that have been achieved in monetary policy from 2004 to 2006. From Sampson, Central Bank, we are working with 50 banks on the establishment of the Development and Investment Fund. Confirmed the Governor of Bank Central, Ali Keywords, Wednesday, that the bank's central working with 50 banks to set up fund development and investment for the granting of loans to citizens. Said Keywords in an interview during the seminar, which held the bank's central on projects financing smaller, attended by Economy News, that the bank's central working hard now with banks to set up fund development and investment from through the Development Framework General Fund, which aims to revitalize the economy through the granting of loans citizens as well as bring companies world, referring to the 50 banks will be involved the establishment of the fund and each bank shares with $10 million for a period of 4 years to become the capital of the fund $2 billion. He added that, no can to find a way else to stimulate the economy only from through funding smaller despite the problems existing in the environment of Iraq, which insists the bank's central to overcome them, adding that the refusal of some banks to grant loans from within the initiative of 1 trillion dinars due to the threats of armed and tribal which encountered when demanding the bank to return the money. He stressed that, the bank gets a profit of 4% within the initiative of 1 trillion dinars, while banks in countries other if you got a profit of 1%, they do not overdo bay, noting that bankers agricultural and industrial not amha loans to citizens because of the problems many have excluded from the initiative of the bank central during the year the current. Last up from John Goat, LOL. There are tons of information coming out of Iraq about the potential for investors and global investment strategies within Iraq. We have seen the banking and other economic and financial reforms. We have watched the planning and advancement against ISIS. It is soon time to pull the plug, end this saga and look more towards the future prosperous Iraq. But we all know this is not going to happen without the dinar revaluing. We also know for a fact the plan never was nor is now to stay on the program rate forever. This program rate was never meant to even stay for this long of a period. So they are already behind on removing it. In summary, we know the issues, we know the facts and we know the next step. So it is all very optimistic and never, ever looked better for the